Hello, humans of Earth. It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Hello. Today we're going to talk about purpose. I heard this quote the other day. I was listening to the Building a Story Brand podcast. And, now I forgot the guy's name. But the guest on the show, his last name was Deel, D-E-E-L. And he runs a large nonprofit down, I believe, in Atlanta. And the quote, the first line of this post, the quote is from that episode. He said it, which was something to the effect of, when you know you're in your purpose, risk becomes a secondary concern. And the minute I heard that, I just stopped. I was walking at the time. I stopped walking to just let that all come in, just soak it all in, because I was like, that was good, that was deep, right? When you know you're in your purpose, risk becomes a secondary concern. Now this guy, in the interview, he was raising 5 girls in a really hard part of Atlanta, crackheads and prostitutes and gangs and crazy stuff. You can go to the Story Brand podcast. I believe it was episode 191. So you can just look for episode 191 and you can hear his story. But crazy, right? So Donald Miller asked him the question hey, some people could say that was, maybe bad parenting or taking that much risk to raise your kids in that environment. Some would say that was maybe not smart. And he said, I know, I've had that thought as well. And the thing he said was, when you know you're in your purpose, risk becomes a secondary concern. And I think the reason why I like that so much is there was much of my life in business. I've been in business since I was 24. And for, I think, most of us in our tribe, you can go decades with the ebb and flow of business. Sometimes it's really fat and sometimes it's really lean. And you stay in it because you think that you feel there's something more to this. There is something about this work that is calling to you. It's important to you. The risk of not having a paycheck is secondary to the fact that you are living in your purpose, right? Now, when I was younger, and I would say only in the last year to 2 years do I feel like I'm really living in my purpose. I am the most aligned I've ever been in my work. And risk is secondary to me. I get that. But before those 2 years, it was the promise of purpose. The risk was secondary to me because I was in pursuit of my purpose. And I think that is the same thing happening there. When you know you're in your purpose, or let's rephrase that, shall we? When you know you're in pursuit of your purpose, risk becomes secondary. And I think for most of us who are wanting to make the world a better place with our business, the kind of business we have and the kind of work we want to do is for making the world a better place. And so part of this episode is just an acknowledgement to you, a validation of you and the path you've been on, that you are either in pursuit of purpose or you've already found it. But in the pursuit of your purpose, you have put risk. Risk has become a secondary issue for you. And that's what I admire so much about business people, is that you will risk it all for the cause. You'll risk it all for the difference you want to make. And I love that. So what do we do with that, right? I don't know that we have to stay in a risky situation for most of us. Clearly this guy who was a guest on the show, it would have been weird for him to just move his family away from his work because his work was connected to the neighborhood he was living in. But for you and I, I think there are some ways that we can continue to press in on purpose, go a little further with our purpose. And I think for many of us, what we've done is we've stopped short of the next push because of risk. You could go further. There is something on your to-do list. There is something in your goals. There is something, it's not about a to-do, it's about a who you need to become next to really build your business where you want it to go. You're going to have to become something more, something different, something bigger than what you are now. That's the game of expansion. But if you, like me, at times forget the purpose in light of the risk, right? It's easy when you go, oh crap, that's a little uncomfortable. I've done a lot of risk up to this point. I don't know if I want to do any more risk. And it's in this moment where you can stall out. You can stall out. And the hard part about stalling out is you start to question yourself and you start to question the purpose. And you're like, is this what I'm really supposed to do? Is this as far as I can really go? And now you're stuck in between this calling, this pulling in your soul to go the next level, to do the next thing, versus the fear that's wanting to keep you safe here. And if you stay in that limbo for too long, it starts to get confusing. It's like a house of mirrors, and you start to not be able to see which direction to go. So how do we get out of that house of mirrors? You've got to come back to purpose. You've got to come back to what is this for? Why are you doing this? Who is this for? And then in some odd way, you've got to go all the way back as if you're starting from scratch, as in you have nothing to lose. That's the hard part, because you've built a life. You've built all of this to this point. And so you feel like you have a lot to lose. But to go the next place, you're going to have to revisit what that purpose is for you. I don't know what that is for you. All I can do is come back to my own sense of purpose and be like, what is my life for? What am I here for? It's not the accumulation of toys. It's not vanity. Those things don't satisfy. I've played those games. Those don't satisfy. So that's where I go. I'm like, what is my life for? What could I do the rest of my life and never get tired of? And from that place, I then can look without distracting myself, without scrolling through Facebook again, without doing anything to muddy those waters. I then take my perspective and look at, then what is the next thing I need to do? And in that space, there's a clearing, right? There's a clearing for what's next. And in that space, it's easier. I'm just telling you, it's easier to take the next step, because when you're clear on your purpose, risk becomes a secondary issue. Cool. All right, gang. Thanks for hanging out with me here tonight in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow when we go live again, here's to you living from a life of purpose.